we're gonna do some short ribs today.
All right.
Love short ribs because it's not as plain, basic, popular as like steak. So we do steak, we do chicken, we do fish in my family a lot. Usually we'll do like a piece of New York or a strip of ribeye, something like that. So when we're trying to do something different or we're trying to do something fancy, when people in my family are tired of the day-to-day, I bust out the short ribs. So a couple things I do differently with the short ribs. Every time I go to a restaurant or when I watch others do it, it's usually we call it blanched. In the States we call it blanched.
Oh, okay.
Or something. So usually it's a ton of liquid seared back and forth on a pan, and then there's a broth, there's some wine, and then in the oven and all of that. So, but what I do is I grill. So I got a grill about 2 months ago. It's been crazy grilling everything, and what I learned was I tested this recipe, and it was to my surprise I really liked it. So grilling gives it makes the crust of the meat a lot more drier.
Right, yeah.
But if you do it at the right temperature and the right time, it very much acts like an oven as well. So it's something kind of similar but a little different as well.
And the inside still stays moist?
Yeah, so I love my meat very, very red. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
And with the way that a short rib is laid out, because of the bone on there, it's really easy to it's easier to get it red than fully cooked.
Oh, okay.
Which I have a tendency to do because I'm not the perfect cook. Marinade wise, so from a heritage standpoint, right? I was born in China. I was raised in the States, and then I was in Europe for a couple of years for college. So, I love to cook, but I've picked up some stuff here and there from Asia, from the States, and from Europe. So, short ribs is more of a European thing. It's not very popular over here. The marinade is very, very Asian. So we have garlic, ginger, green onion, soy sauce, sesame oil, and all of that. And then usually I needed some sweetness to this to begin with, but I'm also kind of on this keto diet, so like getting sugar is very difficult. So I'm using sweet basil instead.
Oh,
so,
interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting choice.
So that Asian part of it, and then I don't know. I just love to grill, so I got the grill cup, and so I was like, America, and that's the American part. So
I love it. I freaking love it.
So yeah, no, I've spent pretty evenly 1/3 of my life in Asia, 1/3 in the U.S., and then a substantial amount of years in Europe as well. So I thought this dish was kind of something that I really like.
Collection of all elements.
And it kind of works too, because a lot of times like you try to fuse stuff and it doesn't work out.
Oh, really?
But this one I think it does.
What stuff have you tried to fuse? That hasn't
It's a
quite
very
made the
good.
cut.
It's gonna take me a while. I usually try to forget those.
Bury them in the recesses of my mind.
Experiment gone wrong.
Yeah. So I'm a big pasta guy. I don't get to eat pasta anymore because of the keto stuff. But yeah, I've tried to do try to use soy sauce in pasta. That hasn't really worked out. That didn't really work out. That was a little bit difficult though, because you have to like really like embed it.
Yeah. I know, I'm like trying to imagine how it's working in my brain.
Yeah. Some things work out, some things don't. Like we did meatballs, like Canadian meatballs with over rice. Maple syrup was the main ingredient there. So you have like red meat, beef, really good.
Really?
Yeah, because sugar goes well with soy sauce. So if you do like maple syrup and soy sauce, that's a really good marinade. No, we also in my culture we talk about the color of stuff of food as well. So which is not a very healthy thing to do. So we like dark colors. It's embedded in dark colors. Historically means that we're not skimpy on the sauce and the flavors.
So when did you get into cooking? Don't know a lot of people who actually like it.
Yeah, the only art or the closest thing to art that I know how to do. I can't draw for my life. I used to play the sax and the piano, got over that, and now it's mostly just cooking. So some people love this about my cooking, some people hate it. I don't measure. So that was one of the things
I'm that person.
Yeah, so when I was, in France, they kill you for that. So I interned in like,
Not measure.
yeah, so I interned at like, excuse me, in French kitchens. Oh, they hated it.
Would they know though if you just missed? Would they know? Would they
They
know?
know. No, they're good at what they do. They're good at what they do, and I always believe food is about, food is about everyone's taste. So I'm gonna cook to my taste, right? And most likely or not, I cook for people that are similar to my taste. Whereas, French culture is you cook to the taste of your guests.
Right.
So everything's either too sweet or not enough. And we're mincing garlic and ginger today because we're grilling. So usually when you blanch something, you want like smashed garlic so you get the flavor in the meat. You do that with a grill, everything just falls to the bottom, and you don't. You really need the marinade to cover the meat while it's grilling. And when you mince stuff, it almost becomes like a paste. So what it does is it matches. It just lashes right on to the meat. I also mix flavors a lot. So like when I finish mincing this garlic, I'll mince the ginger on the same pad because everything goes together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something that you just discovered as you were?
Yeah, I'm constantly thinking about stuff. So, Bertie?
There you go.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so like, I'm one of those people where like, if I'm hungry, then I need something. If I'm like starving, then I need something that I know I'd like. But then if it's around dinner time and I had a late lunch and I'm not hungry, then it'd be good to. I think it's great to like kind of be adventurous and try something new. And if I botch it, I just go out to like Taco Bell.
I'll find something else.
Which hasn't been that. It hasn't been that bad
That's
yet.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
But it's there if you need to. Got it.
Yep. It's a great thing about Vegas. Everything's open.
Right.
If you're trying to be adventurous at 2 a.m.
Right.
You have
You know someone. I know. You know someone's there to back you up.
I made some of my most killer fried rice at 2 a.m.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, because like if you're drunk and like you got some rice left over, and you got some of this, and you got some like ground meat, ground beef. Oh.
And it probably tastes better because you're drunk.
Yes, it tastes better when you're drunk because I tend to overseason when I'm drunk.
Oh, okay.
So I love a lot of fish sauce in my fried rice. That's something a Thai friend taught me.
Fish sauce and fried rice?
Yep.
That sounds great.
Oh, if you do fried rice, save it. Oh, change your life.
I'm new to fish sauce.
Change your life.
Your dad yelled at me last time.
Yeah.
He said I used to wait. Oh, that's too much.
Yeah. The rice soaks it right up. It's a really good blend with sesame oil. Do you use salt? Do you use salt in fried rice? So sub it out for fish sauce instead.
Oh, that's
It's very,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to try that.
Later at 2 a.m.
Later today.
Maybe a little bit if you're not drunk. If you're drunk, you can be a little bit more liberal with the.
With the fish sauce.
Yeah.
This is poor after wobbling.
Yeah, but again, like I come from a northern part of China. So what they say about my culture is like, or my country, as you get south, the flavors become a little bit more bland. So like people from Shanghai, I think from Guangzhou, Hong Kong, they like food that's not very. I shouldn't smash this. They like food that's not overly salted. But then if you look at like the Beijingers, Sichuan's, I think you call it. I guess it's a little bit north. Everything's very, very full flavor.
So it goes from like middle to the road to full of different.
Yeah. So if you look at like even here, right? Like if you like dumplings, right?
Yeah.
Very heavily flavored, right? Noodles and broth. Those are all like most likely they're from a city that's on the north side in China. But if you look at things like rice and like broth, like soup, that's mostly from like a Shanghainese chef or something. Yeah. Dim sum, for example.
Okay.
Right, puff pastry, very, very neutral. It's very southern.
here are mostly from southern China or northern?
Or do they know the difference?
Yeah, or
Not know, but do they represent the differences per se?
Yeah. So there's, I think what Jones in Spring Mountain. There's a Shanghai restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Not my thing, but I think it's very authentic.
It's very specific.
Yeah,
to
it's very light flavored. Because with strong flavored food like salt, soy sauce, it tastes really good when you're eating it. But then you get really thirsty, but there are setbacks, right? So I love garlic, love spring onions. Ginger is an acquired taste for me. I acquired it later on in life. So I do a little bit because it's refreshing, but I never try to have ginger mask garlic in anything that I make. Something I also did not pick up with the French is to conserve ingredients while I cook. I'm more of a like I'm using this and I'm done. Yeah. Yeah, usually I'm taught to like pick each one of these holes, get it all out. I'm just like,
From when you were in Switzerland?
So I went to school for hotel management. So my school, there were certain courses in my school that we had to take to kind of learn the industry. Learn how to be a chef, learn how to bartend. That was fun. Wine tasting was pretty fun.
Which part of China were you born?
So I was born in a small place called Qingdao.
Okay.
It's most known for its Qingdao beer. It's like our one export across the world. So it used to be a German beer plant when we were occupied during World War II. And then we turned it into a Chinese branded beer. Yeah, so known for its seafood, a ton of seafood. Seafood and beer is what we're known for. We're right on the coast.
How old were you when you moved?
I was very young. I think I was like 4. Oh, Switzerland? No, I moved to LA first.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I went from LA back to China. And then I did high school in Connecticut.
You've been all over.
Yeah, and then I didn't go to Europe until university.
So would your parents cook for you when you were growing up, and would they make Chinese food?
So growing up, we always ate out. So my mom was really busy. She used to work for a really big company. So I would go to school, and then she would have work, and then we'd probably meet at some restaurant along the way. And I guess eating out just kind of got really old for me, really earlier on. So I developed an interest for cooking. Then I went into the hospitality industry, and then it was, cooking such a big part of it. Yeah.
Is there something about your culture that you want to share to other people, or something that you're proud of that you want other people to know?
Food-wise or just overall?
Just in general.
I think China has such a big history, and I think in the last 10 years, when I first moved back to China, it was 2004. So I caught the very tail end of China's a third world country. And I was there, and I was able to experience that journey from, to, one of the most badass to today, right? One of the most badass middle class segments in the world, the technology boom, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in that timeline, I think when an economy moves fast, a lot of people tend to forget tradition and culture. And I'm not a very traditionally rooted guy, but I think there's a lot of things food-wise or just habit-wise that that are important to share. Like I love our holidays, but you know, these days, we're as a Chinese citizen, we're more focused on things like Christmas and New Year's than you know our moon festivals and our Chinese New Year's and things like that sort. So
it seems to take away importance from traditional.
Yeah, and I think we're a new world power, so we're still trying to find our place in the world, right? In terms of what we should keep Chinese and what we should learn from everywhere else in the world. Chinese brands, if you look at the top brands in any industry in the world today, not many are Asian in the hotel space. You have the Mandarin Orientals, the Peninsulas from a hotel standpoint, but they're more from Hong Kong, who's been a British colony for a really long time. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool to see in the next couple of years, the Chinese culture establish a really good identity from a branding standpoint. Yeah, we have a lot of we have Hongqi, which is a car brand that's not very well known. That is on the build. Fashion, a lot of really good designers that are Asian, that are Chinese, that aren't known, right? It's mostly the Europeans and Americans at this point. So
you talked about brands and trying to establish a cultural identity in terms of what to keep and what to not keep. Is there anything particular in mind, that value or a trait or something that you would like to keep?
I don't know. I think I've kind of been a little bit too mixed at this point in terms of my cultures. Because granted, right, as proud as I am from the Chinese culture, I think I've learned a lot of great things from other cultures as well.
Okay.
I think it's more about keeping our identity, not our values, as we grow. But being able to learn and to learn the values of other countries, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What would you say are those things that you've learned from other cultures?
Yeah, I think so. I've been fortunate enough to live in the U.S. for a really long time, and something that is done here that is not done anywhere close anywhere else is the idea of teamwork, right? So here, so I went to elementary school here, right? So even in elementary school, right, you work in teams, right? You have PE class, right? You play sports, right? You watch sports, right? Sports is a huge industry out here, multi-millions, multi-billions. Most of them are team sports. So a lot of the ideas out here in America are focused on teams, and it translates everywhere else, right? Like if you work for an American company, collaboration and teamwork is very, heavily emphasized. So that's something that I think we can learn, right? Because in China, it's always about who scores individually the highest, right? If you look at a Chinese classroom, everyone's ranked in terms of score, but not teamwork score, individual score. So that's one thing.
I never really thought about that. That's a good point,
Yeah, that's huge. Heritage, from a European standpoint, there's a lot of things I don't agree with from a European standpoint, but they're very proud of who they are and where they come from, and it's instilled in a lot of products that they sell to the world today.
Right.
I'm getting into watches, Swiss watches, recently, and that's a really good example, right? Like you have this Switch watch industry where you have the tech giants like Samsung and Apple that are having a lot of trouble to get rid of with the smartwatches, right? Because it's still, mechanical watches are still a thing, and they've been able to kind of hold on to those to the heritage, and then because that's really what they sell, right? Because in this century, right, manual automatic watches is not that much of a impressive science anymore. But they've been able to turn the branding into more of a detail-oriented heritage type of product.
I can see that, honestly. Yeah, I see that for sure.
Because who wouldn't want a smartwatch that measures your heart rate at the same time, that can measure someone else's heart rate too.
Right.
You know, there's like this app where you can like
Yeah.
measure that, you can like keep track of your significant other's heart rate if she's like on the other coast or etc.
But it's so instilled in them. Yeah, it's part of their heritage.
But a Patek Philippe can still sell for, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars today.
Oh, good.
And that does nothing but tell the time and look good on your wrist.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's heritage. They're the only company that hand makes their movements and their watches and are solely owned. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if they would point out. When you're an expat somewhere, it's very easy to be like, well, this is different. So it's like it's inferior to what I know. But what you learn really quickly is when you go into like a new atmosphere or new environment, you try to think like them first, and you know, everything's got positives and negatives.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I like that you said that whole thing about like trying to learn about other cultures. I feel like that was one of the goals of this project, was to learn about what's good about other cultures, and maybe you can kind of like get something out of that for yourself.
Yeah.
Have you been asked any funny or amusing things based on your heritage or cultural background?
It doesn't have to be funny. I mean, it can be rude or offensive also.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, this is good. This is a very serious question.
So
Okay.
the person that we did from Hawaii, literally, she's gotten questions like, "Do you have electricity?
where do you
Where do you
live?
live? Do you live in a house?"
Okay.
Like, just,
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It can be funny. It can be ignorant. It can be. It can be whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean honestly, like I left China when I was 4. When I first started this journey. I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides of that, and I think in life, I think it's more of. I think I was just too young to be offended to be on that side of things. When I started coming into that age of reason, or that maturity of reason. You might not want to put this. I thought people were dumb. I thought it was like if you were asking something like that towards my culture, it's probably because you just, you know, you grew up somewhere, right, and you haven't seen much. So, you know, I'm gonna be nice and I'm gonna try to like educate you on stuff.
But what age is the cutoff?
Like, you know, when you,
saying?
yeah, like right after you know how they say boys mature a little bit older than ladies do.
I can understand that.
Like
but
late
at
teens.
some point you're like, okay, really?
Late teens,
Like,
yeah.
But what questions
okay.
would those be? Like, what would you get?
I don't know. I remember. I was in Shanghai once, and I was in one of those. I was in a very nice area, but it's Shanghai. It's crowded, and I think this guy was kind of talking at me for walking really slowly. And I'm like, yo, bro, there's like 10 people ahead of me.
Right.
But he was speaking to his girlfriend, who was also Chinese, and he was speaking in English. I mean, this was at a time in China where I guess if you knew English, right, it's safe to assume that, you know, you could get away with saying a lot of stuff and people wouldn't understand. So I turned around and I was like, you know, if you don't like it here, you're welcome to go. So my stance of that is it's not, I don't take offense to that, right? I think I either find it funny or I don't think people are below me. I just think like, hey, look, like people have different experiences, right? Like sometimes there are times in my life where I wish I grew up in one place and I don't have to deal with all this, this visa issues and this and that and all this stuff. So I don't take offense to that. I was just like, hey, look, it's not like, you know, it's not Chinese barbecue because I'm Chinese and I invite you over to barbecue.
It's just a barbecue.
It's just like we're having steaks.
We're just
Bring nachos. Bring nachos.
Did you have to teach yourself that? Like, was there a certain point where you decided like I can't be angry about this?
Oh no, there's no. It's not a difficult thing. It's not like, oh, I need to adapt to the world. It's not like when I meet people that have traveled as much as I have, it's the same way. It's just like you can't expect people to have the same knowledge as you once you're fortunate to like speak French and Chinese and English, right? Because at one point you were that clueless guy that didn't speak a word of French and you didn't know how things worked out. So
I think that's a better aspect to have for sure.
And when you were learning the culture, you probably frustrated and you were probably like, you know, screw this. Like this is like in my country, it's almost right. And then you probably offended some people too. And so I think the world's becoming smaller. I think, I think the statement of like, hey, they're just different, like that carries so much more these days
Right.
than a couple of years
And
ago.
that's what it just needs to be. It just needs to be you're different. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be like you're different, but why?
Yeah.
Or you're different
Yeah.
because of this reason. Like you don't
Yeah.
have to point them out. Like
Oh, it's and it's
okay, you know
and
what
it's
I mean?
yeah, and it's everywhere in work
Right.
too. Like if you work for global companies now, it's
Right.
just like you can't be like, whoa, this is bad. You have to be like, before you say stuff like that, you be like, okay, where's this person from? Is this offensive?
Yes.
Right? Because
Actually think
sometimes
about-
it's weird because
Yeah.
it's like too many rules, but the origin of the rules does make sense, right? Because you could be talking to someone that is different. Yeah, food as well. Like, a lot of people that are trying Asian food for the first time, the texture is the biggest obstacle. It's not the flavor, it's the texture.
The texture.
Yeah, the soggy stuff, the mushy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, congee, tofu. A lot of my friends, they can't. Yeah, the flavor is great, but it's very, very interesting. Well, I could be like, well, you're dumb because this obviously tastes good, right? But it's not. It's very, very different. That's very. That's like if I had something and I was like, whoa, this shit's spicy, and some guy was like, well, you're dumb. I mean, this is like, you can't handle spice, and I'm like, no, it's just not my thing, right? Like, yeah.
Different is good.
No, it's good. It's good, and I think it's for the better. I think if you have and that again, it comes back to perspective. You change from a negative to a positive perspective,
Right.
reality changes.